So we were just talking about how the energy is when your parents, before your parents conceive you, while your parents are, your mom is pregnant with you, that whole energy, and how does that affect you energetically. And one of the things that I think is really interesting that most people don't understand is that energy can and will affect you the rest of your life.
Yes.
So it's kind of like one of those, whatever they're going through, they keep that energy. So I've got my angel cards because I'm going to pull a couple of angel cards with this as well. But I want to talk about this energetically. And I think usually it changes a little bit as the children, firstborns, middle child, last child, whatever it is. And if there's 7 or 8 of you, it's kind of like the older group will be kind of this way, the middle group will be like this, and the younger group will be like that. So it's kind of like an interesting one. Usually the oldest sibling is always trying to find their place in the world. Why? Because your parents were trying to find their place in the world when they conceived you. In the beginning. Yes. They're kind of always talking about like starting something new or something like that. That's kind of that oldest child energy, is like what's new or different. But if there's an abuse in the family, or kind of something that like parents were dealing with abuse when they conceived you, or if there's abuse now in your current family, that can change, and that older child can be very, very protective of energy, because it's like, I'm the oldest, I'm supposed to protect everybody else's energy. I'm supposed to be very protective. So a lot of times, even as they get married and have children of their own, they will still be very protective.
The protective one in the family.
So I'm going to pull an angel card for this. And I'm not looking at the angel cards, I'm looking at the camera, and I'm going to be like, this is the one right here. And this is all about new love. Now, a lot of times, because it's a new relationship for the mom and dad, even if they've been married for years, if they're bringing in a new child, there's going to be a new love aspect of this.
To start the family.
And sometimes that oldest child will not get into a love relationship, because if there's abuse, they will kind of like almost like pull out of like, I need to be available to the family. So they don't ever really fall in love.
Oh, and so when they start an actual relationship, so do they take their time longer, or do they pretend like they're in love immediately?
It can be either way, and it's kind of depending on how their family was, like their parents were beforehand. But one of the things I think is really kind of like one of those like interesting is how the mother felt, because the mother's carrying the child. We already figured that out. Mom is carrying the child. So if mom felt like she needed to jump in this relationship right away to get protection for the child, then that child is always going to be jumping into relationships and falling in love like, we met 5 minutes ago and we're vastly in love right now. But if mom felt like, I'm comfortable where I'm at, but I'm moving into this new relationship, that can make her feel like I can push off the love part of it or whatever else. So that's kind of that interesting, like,
I do believe in that, because I have my boys, and each of them have a different personality, even off a base of what they were born in, like Aries, Pisces, whatever. It's just how I was when I was pregnant is how their attitude is, like how they are, how they're becoming. I noticed that, so I really do believe in that.
Well, and I also think like a lot of times like people will say that like, well, like we had the same parents or whatever else, and it's like you really didn't. Because the way you were when you got pregnant with the first child is not really where you are when you have the second child. So like technically it is the same biological parents, but it's like where you are in the relationship or where you are in your life is going to change that energy of that child.
And you're just starting with the first one, so everything's new to you. So that's
new
that scare, anxiety, like getting prepared or not prepared.
And then usually the middle child or the second child, depending on how many children there are in the group, that is going to be a child that is usually a little bit more centered, but also they're usually the peacemakers. Usually they are the peacemakers. They are the calming. We want to calm everybody else down, and they learn that really, really well. Of like, we want to calm this energy down.
Definitely my middle child.
So one of the things that the middle child is always good. This card is ideas and inspiration, and it's because they're always coming up with new ideas and inspiration to make the family calm down. Like, how can I say this differently, or how can I do this differently? Usually to the best of their abilities. I will tell you, usually at some point they get to the point where if there's a lot of abuse or a lot of crazy things going on, they kind of get to the point where it's like, forget it, I'm over this. Like, I've done this, I've tried this, it didn't work, I'm kind of overwhelmed, I can't deal with this. So a lot of times, like, they'll back down over, if they're getting, like, they're making changes and things are coming through, they'll be like, yes, I will stick with it. But if it doesn't, they'll be like, forget it, I'm out of here.
Or they grab the other siblings and move them away to keep them at peace while there's something else happening on the other end.
Yeah, and usually I think it's interesting. I'm a middle child, but I also think it's interesting that a lot of times a middle child will end up being the leader of the family in some ways. Usually the calming leader. Not necessarily always the dynamic leader of we're going to do this together, but they're usually the calming leader of the family.
Oh my God, that's totally my middle child. Yep, that's my boy.
So then we start dealing with the babies. And the babies usually, because mom and dad know that we're not going to have any more children, or this is the last child, or whatever else.
Or oops, I thought we were done.
I thought we were.
I
thought we were done with this. So they usually come out and they have this like, I demand my attention. I demand what's my fair share of my attention, and that sort of thing. So a lot of times, like, people say the baby of the family gets their way, but it's also kind of like they don't always know where to fit in. They're almost like yelling for help, like, hello, where do I fit in all this? Yes. Mom does this, dad does this, older child does this, middle child does this. Where do I fit in all of this crazy stuff? So a lot of times, like, they're almost like their energy screams out, where do I belong? And sometimes that that little younger child never really finds where they really fit. They never really, like, I fit here.
So they're always searching.
They're always searching. And once they find something they love, they're good. But a lot of times when they're still in that searching mode, they're kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go. So let's pull a card for the baby. The baby of the family. So, divine guidance. Baby children usually are often kind of like the divine leaders for the family, and the family will do things to make them happy because they're usually, like I said, they're usually more dynamic and outspoken. But I will tell you, a lot of times they really require that divine guidance. They require that, like, where do I fit in? Where do I divinely fit in? Not only in my family, but in the world itself. Like, where do I fit in all of this? What do I want to do? And like I said, mom has her place, dad has her place, older sibling has their place, younger sibling has, or middle child has this. So it's kind of like, where do I fit in all of this? So that's kind of the interesting part. But it's also, even if it's dynamically the same parents, where you are in your life will reflect on that child. And it will reflect the rest of their lives. Maybe not 100%, but it will be, you'll see signs of it everywhere you go.
I love for the ones who are the only child.
Now, an only child, a lot of times they almost feel like they're an adult when they're born because they're only around adults, so they don't really get a chance to kind of connect. And you'll see that in, like, the oldest child for a while, because for a while they are the only child. They are the only child. And then when it gets into the only child of, like, there literally is no other children or whatever else, they almost have this, like, calm, relaxed energy, because it's like they're going to kind of do whatever it takes to make their parents calm and relaxed. And I will say it's one of those, they also have a very dynamic energy because, like I said, they feel like they're like the third person in the marriage. So it's kind of like they have like this dynamic energy of like, I belong in this as much as anybody else does. I've got to do this. So that can be a little overwhelming at times. So that can be like oh my gosh. One of the things I will say is only child is going to find their way. And usually they're going to find peace, and if they don't find peace in their family, they will not find peace on earth. They will always have that, like, I don't know where I fit in, or I want to find a place where I do fit in. So let me pull one for the only child, because I did it for everybody else. So here we go. Only child. Oh, it's this one right here.
Pop it right out.
Pop it right out. So the only child is like nature. And so it is, they are naturally part of the group. They feel like they're an adult. And a lot of times they have a hard time connecting to children their own age because they are so around adults all the time that they really don't make that connection well with someone their own age.
How about our twin babies? Is there a different one for twin babies?
We'll talk about that one in just a second.
Okay.
I thank you so much for joining us today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.